Hi everyone, I'm Patrick Jones and welcome to episode 76 of That Gives Me Anxiety. Part 2 on sharks. So when Jamie and I go to get food, or go out, day night, we usually go into Charleston, right? We live in the suburbs of Charleston and we usually go into Charleston. Charleston's great, people fly from all over. Food is good, service is good, the ambiance of the city, real good. But we've decided to make a more concerted effort to check out things in the neighborhood, like things that are closer to us. Tried a barbecue place near us. It was good. Oh, man. And because we bought this house last summer, I view everything through the lens of, that's probably good for my property value, or that's bad for property value. Having a barbecue place 5 minutes from the house, good for property value. If I can control myself and don't become morbidly obese from this place, right? There's a certain line about things being too close, right? But yeah, getting some barbecue was a nice change up from all the wedding planning that we've done all weekend. Making some moves on that, feeling good, feeling stressed, but feeling good. Yeah, other than that, did a show at Theater 99. They just keep selling out down there, and man, what a time it is. If you come to Charleston, definitely check us out. Well, as I mentioned, today's episode is part 2 on sharks. We have Andy Adkins, who's also a improviser at Theater 99, back, as well as Yannis from Florida International University. Yeah, we're gonna keep talking about how sharks are awesome. And how we can learn to live with them and not be so afraid, right? You still want to be able to live your life and go swimming, but also do it safely. And yeah, just not let any fear you have get in the way of you living your life and doing the things you want to do. So before we get to those interviews, I just want to remind you, if you're liking the show, please remember to rate and review it. Got a great review last week from Pretzelman5. So thank you to Pretzelman5. This one, I think that one was on Apple Podcasts. So yeah, thank you. Giving ratings like that helps boost the show in the algorithm. The all-deciding, all-powerful algorithm. You can check the show out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. On YouTube, you can see this green shirt that is fraying at the bottom, but you can't really tell. It looks fine on the top, so I could really only wear it at my desk, working remotely or in podcasts. Got it in Copenhagen. What a fun fact. I didn't think I'd be able to find anything that really fit me in Europe. Shoulders are, I got Big Mac bone structure, we'll say. And then there's my partnership with Pure Spectrum CBD. Don't forget the promo code ANXIETYPOD, one word, for 15% off your order. And if you're liking the show and you want to place a tip or make a donation, you can do that in the description with the Buy Me a Coffee link. Thank you so much to people who've been doing that. Yeah. Very enthusiastic there. So yeah, it's time to go continue to talk about sharks. As always, thank you so much for listening. And enjoy. Joining me again for part 2 of an anxiety related to sharks, I have my friend Andy Adkins, who's a terrific improviser here at Theater 99 in Charleston. Andy, thank you so much for coming back.
Thanks. It's great to be back, Pat. Thanks
yeah, absolutely. Well, we're talking about sharks, and I'm wondering if listening to any of the clips has changed your perspective. I feel like for me, it hasn't. And I feel like I'm just working more on being okay with knowing that sharks are out there. Is that sort of your experience, or do you think Giannis is changing your mind a little bit?
I think so. I think I would strive to be more in your camp. Yeah, I get envious of people sometimes who are able to just enjoy certain things without thinking about it too much.
There's a beauty in that, right? Yeah,
it really is. And sometimes, all the time you go to the beach and you see people in there, and a lot of them look just really carefree. And I don't think that they're thinking about it. Maybe some of them are, but I think a lot of them aren't. And I think that there's something really cool about that.
Oh yeah, right. Like you hear an Australian surfer be like, even one that gets bit, and it's like, are you gonna stop going in the water and more often than not, they're like, I'm going back in the water tomorrow, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. That's
and it
wild.
would ruin my relationship. Yeah. With the
Yeah,
water.
I'm the same way. That's the way I'm wired. I would move to a landlocked place and like,
Pools only.
yeah, so I do admire that where people can go back and face the thing that took them down. Um,
Hmm.
and I think that we should all strive for that.
Yeah. What would you say is your number one like anxiety causer? Is it heights or just deep water in general, or is it something else?
I mean, I think currently it's airplanes.
Okay.
I used to fly, and I haven't for a few years now. And
Mm.
I think the more time that passes, it gets harder and harder to.
It builds up in your mind. Yeah.
Yeah. And plane crashes are like shark bites where they're exceedingly rare. But my dad actually died in a plane crash when I was really young.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh my
So
goodness.
after I became a father, it became more like present in my mind that
Mm.
that sense of risk, and it's been like really hard to do that. And it's sort of, I don't know, it's sort of like an open question for me right now. Like, do I want to fly again? Because I can't imagine not flying again. You just miss out on too many things,
Yeah.
like important
Travel.
events or travel,
Hmm.
things that you want to see in life. And so, yeah, I feel like it's something that I probably do need to address, and it especially as it gets like worse over time.
Hmm.
And so I think I will, but there hasn't been like a need to yet. And
Yeah.
I'm afraid that's what it's going to come down to, is there's going to be a time where I need to fly.
Hmm.
And I'm going to be faced with that. But
Yeah. I
whatever.
definitely know exactly where you're coming from. Flying was absolutely terrifying for me for a long time. Like beads of sweat in my palms, just like gripping the armrests. And I only share this as like hopefully an inspiration. I I'm no longer afraid on airplanes.
Like totally comfortable. Right.
Well, not like totally comfortable because the
Yeah.
seats are awful and it's still
But
like a bus in the
yeah.
sky. Yeah.
So you're psychologically okay.
Psychologically, I'm able to just like, watch episodes of The Office and just like, look forward to the drink cart or the snack cart or whatever's coming by. And that just comes from talking to therapists about why I was scared and just sort of like working through it. And so I think it is possible to like really lower that anxiety. But of course, there's certainly an extra layer with your father dying in a plane crash. Uh,
Yeah. And I think that it's also given me a different perspective on things that have a low risk of catastrophe, like a
mhm.
shark bite or something, where it's like, well, yeah, I mean, maybe one in a million, but if you're that one guy, it sucks really bad.
Yeah, right. They always say that about a recession versus a depression. It's like, yeah, it's a recession economically, but it feels like a depression if you're the one who was laid off.
Right, exactly. Yeah. If you're the one that got his farm flooded under 100 feet of water, for the Lake
Yeah.
Anna. Um,
Yeah. Then it feels pretty bad. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I think it's a good time to go to the first clip with Yannis. We're learning a little bit more information about sharks, and hopefully for people out there, learning a little bit more and appreciating sharks a bit more helps with the fear. So I want to talk about shark migration a little bit. You hear, or probably because of Jaws, you hear about great white migration between Florida and New England as it warms up a bit. Are there dead zones where there may be less sharks, or is it sort of a shark fits the niche of different oceanic like environments?
Well, the only place I know, as far as I know anyway, the only place where there are no sharks is the Antarctic. I think that is the
Hmm.
only region where you won't find any. You'll find them in every other environment from the Arctic onwards. So obviously, when we're talking about sharks, it depends what species. So
Yeah.
species have different ranges, but you can find deep sea sharks, you can find cold water sharks, you can find warm water sharks, you can find species that move between cold and warm water. So it really depends on which species we're talking about.
But they're everywhere. That's it. Yeah.
Other than the Antarctic.
Yeah. I've heard that we don't know a lot about great whites and sort of where they go. I've heard things, and this is just me dropping hearsay to an expert. that they do go a lot deeper since we've begun tracking them.
Yeah, I mean, I would not say anymore that we don't know that much about where they go. I think that might have been true 20 years ago, but they're actually now one of the more well-studied species of sharks. You know, everybody loves white sharks and everybody wants to study white sharks. And I think if you look at the number of studies, there's probably a lot more work done on white sharks than other species. Not to say there's not still a lot to learn, but certainly in regions in Australia or East Coast United States or California, South Africa, we now have a lot of data. We're still uncovering new things all the time. That is true, and that's going to continue as the amount of data we collect grows. But again, I'd say compared to or relative to other species, that we have a fair bit of data now from white sharks.
Cool. Yeah. In the event that someone is bit, the common sense things are, right, get out of water. You hear people talking about punch them on the nose or go for the eyes. Is there anything like that? I mean, it's super, super rare, as you've stressed, but are those old wives' tales, or do they hold up?
First of all, most shark bites is one bite and then it's gone. So it's kind of, at that point, it's just simply get yourself out of the water. So the actual chance, obviously, the chance of any bite happening is very low. The chance of having a fight with a shark that has bitten you and is continuing to try is extremely low. To be honest, if that were to happen to you, the likelihood that you're going to find the nose to strike it, not that I think that would do anything, is very small. Now, the eyes are a vulnerable spot. They are for anything. So, certainly the eyes would be vulnerable for a shark. But again, if you truly are having a fight, hand-to-hand combat with a shark in the water, I don't see you being able to focus on the eyes and do a finger jab in the eyes to get it off. Now, saying that, of course, you should fight. And that's true for any attack you may have. Just keep in mind that that anytime you're using your arms to strike towards the head region, you're more likely to get more and more cuts, just because even if it's just running, the teeth are very sharp. And so you can slice up your fingers just sort of working with dead shark jaws because they are that sharp. So you can imagine how quickly it comes to get cut up. But you have to fight, and you have to do your best to push that animal off. Again, very, very rarely would an animal like that try to, or it's extremely unlikely that it's going to try and stick around and have a brawl with you. Now, I think we see that when you look at predatory behavior of sharks, there's a difference between some of the sort of bites that seem to be more of an investigation versus a true full-on committed predatory attack. Yeah, if you see a true committed predatory attack, it's something to behold. And that is why I view that we have some misconceptions about the reasons behind sharks biting humans, because rarely do you see it in that context, that sort of truly committed attack. You don't generally see it like that. If we did, I think we'd be having a lot more fatalities. And so as an example of that, imagine a swimmer being bitten by a white shark, and that's it, versus looking at a white shark that is going to take out a seal where it's a true predatory strike. Those are very rarely similar from a behavioral standpoint. So I think that the behavioral state of the animal can be very different from a true predatory context. Now, there have been some very, very rare cases where it has been a true predation event on a human, but that is incredibly rare.
It makes perfect sense. I mean, this is an apex predator that's evolved over millions of years, right? Why would it hold back its capabilities? If it wanted to strike you, it would.
And if it wants to take you, an animal that size, it will. That's you're talking about a 6-meter animal. If it really wants to be a predatory strike, it will take you, which means that people have fought them off when they have been bitten before. That was not, to me, a committed predation attempt. It was, again, I can't say for sure what the animal was thinking, but it didn't seem to me that was, I want to take this individual as prey.
Yeah, honestly, though, that makes me feel a lot better in just considering they have all these tools at their disposal. They absolutely could, and yet they rarely do. It's more investigative. I mean, still nobody wants that, but
well, when I say that, let me be clear: an investigative bite from an animal that size can easily be fatal. So that doesn't necessarily doesn't change the outcome in that sense. But obviously, the chance of it being fatal is much less than when you would have a truly committed attack.
Right. Absolutely. I'm curious, and I want to talk about the role sharks play in the ocean. I've heard how important they are, but I'm curious if you can spell that out a little bit for the listeners.
Yeah. So, and I think it's a good question, because it's an area where there is misconception on the role they play, and I'll say more so that it's a misconception about how little we know. I think that, you get this general consensus that we know that sharks all play a critical role in the ecosystem. But if you ask to see specific examples of data showing their ecological role, it's considerably less. That doesn't mean that they don't have an ecological role. It just means that we don't have a good understanding of it. Now, there are certainly several examples where we do, and we can see the importance of these animals. So most sharks are kind of in the upper level of the food chain. They often get called apex predators, which means they're at the top. But again, that's a misconception. There's very few species of sharks that are truly at the top. And that means that if you're not at the top, you have predators as well. So a lot of sharks do have predators. There's exceptions, like you may think of your bull sharks, your tigers, your white sharks. But even in those cases, we know that there are exceptions to that. We know that white sharks, for example, can be preyed upon by orcas. So they can also have predators. But by being at the sort of upper region of these food webs, we expect them to play some role in regulating the ecosystem, which means that if you were to remove them, you might expect to see changes. And we do have some evidence of that. So I mentioned white sharks, orcas, for example. We have a situation in South Africa now where, for whatever reason, white sharks seem to have been targeted by orcas. Orcas have started to kill white sharks there, and you're seeing a lot less white sharks in some of these coastal South African regions. And you can start to see changes in the food web. For example, you will see more soupfin sharks, which you wouldn't normally have seen in these coastal waters. Sorry, not soupfin sharks, copper sharks. See more copper sharks turning up when you would have not seen that previously. So presumably, because the white sharks aren't there or aren't as abundant, then their potential prey can now become more abundant. You have other situations like with tiger sharks, where tiger sharks can regulate the behavior of some of their prey. Like, for example, how much grazing takes place by turtles or dugongs, these big herbivores. And when you have tiger sharks present, they can't graze as much because they have to spend some time sort of being vigilant to avoid getting eaten
looking
by
over the
tiger
back.
sharks. If you're a turtle, you can't just, I'm just going to eat all day long. Sometime you have to invest, making sure you're not going to end up as prey. And so that means when you have tiger sharks, you have less grazing, which means you have these sort of healthier seagrass beds. So you can have this system where if you didn't have those tigers, then likely you may get overgrazing of these seagrass beds. And we have examples of that happening. And so we do have, sort of several case studies showing the important role that sharks play. We just have to be cautious with making these sort of general statements like, there's no sharks, the ocean would collapse. Well, the ecological role is going to vary. A white shark's ecological role is not going to be the same as a small leopard shark's ecological role. And for some species, we're starting to gather data on their role. And for other species, we know very little about what their role is. And they're not all going to be equally important from an ecological standpoint, that is.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for spelling that out. It's very interesting. Like, it's a win for certain species. It means so many different things, and good for some, bad for others. Can we talk? I know you've got a lot on your plate. You've got work, you've got friends, you've got family, pets, you've got the people that you make small talk with at the coffee shop or gym. You've got that bird that you see when you wake up every morning outside your window that you've projected things onto. Look at that bird. Doesn't even love its family. It's always by itself. You do that. Everyone does that. Point is, you've got a lot on your plate. Well, that's why there's Instacart, to take a little bit off your plate. Using Instacart, you search for all your favorite foods and things that you need from the grocery store, all online, all while you're looking at that bird, wondering why it hasn't called its mom. And they deliver it to you. They go to the store and do the shopping for you. And they can deliver it in as fast as an hour. And you can sign up by clicking the link in the description, wherever you're listening or watching. And that's a great way of supporting the show. So it's a great way of supporting this show. It's a great way to make your life a little bit easier, because we all know that you have so much going on, like wondering whether that bird judges you back. So like working towards the goal of just trying to be okay with sharks are everywhere. Like Yannis in this clip is just talking about how literally sharks are everywhere except for around Antarctica. So it's like you're not going to escape them. It's just...
Yeah. I believe that there's a place in like the Bahamas or something as a tourist attraction where you can scuba dive with sharks, and like they'll take you down there, and I think maybe give you like little scraps of fish to sort of like toss around.
Oh my God, like they're geese at a park?
Swim around. Yeah. And I mean, like they do this regularly and apparently without incident. I mean, maybe every now and then, but
they don't advertise those ones, right?
Yeah. Certainly not. But
9 out of 10 can come back with their limbs.
But I mean, it does seem that with all the caution that you should take, you could still go out there with a bucket of fish and toss them around and probably not get bit.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's right in this like litigious world that we live in. There are businesses that are like, let's get you as close to these animals as possible. Let's get you petting them. You know?
Can you imagine the waiver that you have to sign?
Yeah. You have to sign a waiver for like mini golf. You know, it's
yeah. Sure, you have to initial in multiple places on that one.
Yeah. My sister studied abroad in South Africa and did the like, speaking of Shark Week, the ones where that's like the image when you say Shark Week, I think of
That's
is
South
like
African.
And them like jumping up and like how big they are. And she was just saying like how small it makes you feel, and in a good way. It's just like sharing the planet with this incredible animal that's capable of this level of violence, right? I mean,
yeah, it's remarkable. And so she saw them like doing the full breach out of the water, and
yeah.
Wow. When we talk about the size of those things, are you familiar with the megalodon?
Yeah. That's like the giant shark, right?
Yeah. And there's areas around here where people in the creek beds they find the fossils, like the teeth.
Really?
Yeah, they dig them out because I think the ocean used to go all the way up to like Colombia or something. And
okay. So like 90 minutes from here.
Yeah, and I think around Somerville, it was some sort of like megalodon like breeding ground. Like there's a couple creek beds around there that it's very rich with megalodon teeth. People go and forage for them, and that is a terrifying animal to think about, because it's basically, as I understand it, a great white shark that's just almost 10 times as big.
Remarkable, right?
Yeah.
I live close to Somerville, and that makes me want to go out and forage for megalodon teeth.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, I mean, that just sounds like really cool. Like I remember last year I went hiking in Moab, Utah, and on some of these trails they have dinosaur tracks, like they just didn't move it. And you can see it, and it's just like a profound experience to see something that, there's a sign saying that it's like, we think this was like an Allosaurus from 190 million years ago. There's just, profound is the only word that comes to mind to me, that like this planet has had life on it for so long, and it's come in all these different varieties, and it just makes you again feel small and but appreciative of our little bit of space in the world.
Yeah, that is remarkable. And they're remarkable animals. I mean, they really are. There's something kind of beautiful about them, I think, like a great white shark, or just a big beautiful animal. If you're viewing it from a safe distance. It's like looking at volcanic lava, that's like there's
Yeah.
something very pretty and entrancing about it from a distance.
Right.
And
Get it on an 8K screen or something,
yeah. Now we get every now and then in the local news, they'll share when there's been like a big great white shark off the coast, because they, a lot of them have these GPS trackers now.
Have you been on that website?
I haven't been on the website, but I have seen local news stories where they'll, when it pings like nearby or maybe around the harbor or something, they'll say, oh, this 13-foot great white was, out
It's
there.
like Gary.
But are you saying there's a website that has
that has that like up to the minute pings, so you can see? Whoa. They do turtles, they do different kinds of sharks. I'll put the information in the episode for listeners, and I'll tell you once we're done with the episode. But yeah, you can see even up to the minute, and so you can see like how close they are, and they're they only have a handful, right? They're not gonna ping every shark, but they're everywhere.
They are everywhere. So there's a couple categories of YouTube videos that I've found that are shark related that I wanted to just briefly mention. One are surf kayakers, and these are people who they go out kayaking, and they'll have one or two like fishing. I'm sorry, I said surf kayakers. I meant fishing kayaks.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Fishing kayakers, and they'll have the rods kind of like trolling behind the kayak. And some of them will take it out into the ocean, and there's videos of people doing it from all over the world, and even on like places like South Africa. And I mean, like if you think about it, that's like model shark irresponsible behavior, right? Because they're just going around in a little kayak out in the deep water.
Looks like a small whale.
Yeah,
like
with
slowly
the bait trailing behind them, and
right.
then either the bait or the fish that gets hooked to the bait attracts the sharks, and there's videos of sharks coming up and bumping against the side of the kayak and stuff, and it just seems so terrifying.
Yeah.
Your heart really gets racing watching those. And the other category of videos that I've stumbled upon are where people, a lot of times in places like Florida where the water's a little bit clearer, you have a little bit better visibility, they'll fly a drone over a beach with lots of surfers, swimmers, and you can actually see like sharks in the water, the dark outline of the shark.
Like close to people.
And they'll really have no idea. Sometimes they may fly the drone down to kind of draw the attention to it, and then the people will spot it. But most of the time, the people are just totally oblivious to it.
And that's in clear water, right?
Yeah.
Like,
in clear water. Well, with a little bit of distance, you can't really see if it's under the water.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's so scary. But it also lends to like sharks really aren't that interested, because they would just be able to pick us. Like we would just be like a bag of chips to them. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
They really wanted us. And that also lends itself to like whenever you go to an aquarium and there's like sharks in there, there's also like tons of other fish in there.
Right. Yeah. Just peacefully coexisting.
Yeah. Or the shark, or the little fish that like always like swims behind and like eats the scraps of the shark, right? Like they just seem to like let that happen.
Yeah.
It's like the cartoon bully and like the little guy that comes after.
Yeah, I love that.
And that reminds me of what Yannis was saying about, I asked him about fighting a shark and whether you should hit it on the nose or like go for the eyes. And like in reality, if a shark wants to eat you, it's going to eat you, right? There's really nothing you can do. And yet rarely do we see. It's like, if you get a bite in the ocean, that sucks. But like it's very different than like a shark is like, I'm eating that shit, because you would just be dead, right? Yeah. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah. I mean, there's two kinds of shark attacks, and there's the like when they take a bite and then swim away. And then the other ones, I mean, if they want to take you down, they are ocean Jedi. They will
the ocean Jedi, they know you're there.
Every movement.
They sense your fear,
your actions, and take you down.
Yeah. But yeah, the other interesting thing about like fighting a shark, he was saying how, you may not want to like punch and kick it because its teeth are just so sharp you would like gash your skin open. Not something
Oh,
I ever realized.
yeah.
Like, it's just like they're just like razor blades all around.
Hmm. I feel like if you could go for the eyes, most animals are sensitive there. If you could just like
If you could just do that.
just give it a little eye
Boop,
poke.
just like
Um,
Curly, just the Three
yeah,
Stooges. Just
yeah, just boop it. I also, I always think about when they tell you like what to do in these situations. I wonder like how much you're even thinking in
You're
those
probably not.
situations. Like you're getting bitten by a shark,
Yeah.
you're mostly just screaming.
How much like fire safety information do you get as a kid? And then I was in a hotel that like had like a fire in the lobby, and there was not, like, I was a child, but there's not one rational thought that entered my mind. Right? It was just like panic, running around like trying to find my dad.
Just get in the
Like,
elevator, go up to the top floor.
yeah, I know. I just like panicked and like ran around like looking for, like, not another thought
Yeah.
entered my mind.
Yeah. Once
So
fight or flight, man.
fight, flight, find your dad, right? Those are the three
Yeah.
F's.
Yeah, and then I also feel like there'd be sometimes if something bad, get that overwhelming sense of regret that not now you're fighting a shark, but you're also just overwhelmed with sadness that you chose to go into the ocean. That's kind of the way my brain works too.
Yep, I know that. Just just come down hard on yourself for enjoying the water. How dare you?
Do you think that there's things that we don't know yet about sharks, like things that they could be attracted to, maybe why they bite certain people?
There has to be, right? I mean, they have these other senses that we know they have.
They're so perceptive on a
Mhm.
chemical and electrical level. I don't know, maybe things like hormones that we perspire or something like that.
Could be, right? And like even Giannis was like, if you have shiny jewelry, they're like their curiosity could just get the best of them, right?
Mhm.
And just want to go and investigate. And like you said, like that's putting things in their mouth is just sort of how they exist in the world. It's how they sense things, is how they interact. And but that makes us bleed. So it's not fun.
If you don't mind me asking, what's your personal comfort level with sharks? Would you do a shark cage?
Oh yeah. I've tried to get people to go do it, and I couldn't. They're off
Where
the
did
coast of
you
Long Island. They have
they do
shark
it up
cave.
there?
What's that?
They do it up there?
Yeah, they do it up there. I probably not great whites, though. They do. Great whites are up there because they go to like Cape Cod in Massachusetts, but they do it there for like blue shark and mako and like smaller sharks. But I would definitely do it, and I would
Yeah.
be terrified.
You
Uh,
actually looked into it like at one
Yeah, I
point.
tried to do it a couple years ago and couldn't find anyone that was willing to do it with me. So yes, I definitely would do it. If you know someone that would do it here in Charleston, I would do it.
Are you like snorkeling or is it a scuba situation?
I think that case was a scuba situation.
Okay. Have you done that before or
I've done scuba once
really?
where they like, it was just on like vacation, and that's a little like concerning, like frightening in and of itself, because I don't know about you, when you go from you're above, we have all this air, it's great, and then you're like committing, and the fact that mentally they tell you not, you can't just like swim up in a panic. You just have to like constantly repeat to yourself, okay, this is all right. And even if your mask fills up with water, they teach you this like technique to blow it out, because you can't just swim to
Wow.
the top. Otherwise, I forget what it's called, but it's something about like getting oxygen bubbles in your bloodstream, which could cause a heart attack.
Yeah. Is it like
Uh,
the bends or
that's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah.
yeah, that's terrifying.
What are you? Have you ever done it, or would you
I've
do
never
it?
done it before. I snorkeled in places, but I've never done that scuba. And it seems like it would be, yeah, such a fascinating thing to do to get into.
It becomes so peaceful. Like once I felt like a little comfortable, it's just like a peace that you can just like slowly breathe and like look up, and you're 30 feet under the water.
Yeah, that seems so cool. And then And it opens up a world of destinations that people go to because it's got a cool shipwreck or something.
Yeah.
Um,
And then you're into bounty hunting and treasure hunting
exactly. You're trying to get a foot in that door for a while.
We're right. It's all about who you know.
Exactly. It's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be another thing that I would love to try someday, but I never have. But I think it's pretty cool that you did it once.
Yeah. I'll look into the shark cage diving and see if we can get you out there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I never even considered that they could do it here in Charleston.
They definitely could. Yeah. Probably have to do it out a bit because of, the murkiness of
water
the
clarity.
water.
Yeah.
Yeah. But why not?
Yeah, I guess I would do it.
There you go. That's a commitment. Saying it on a podcast, it becomes real. Well, I think it's a good time to go to the fourth clip with Yannis, where we just sort of talk about Yannis's anxiety related to planes and how that relates to anxiety related to sharks. One of life's mysteries is that birthdays always find me unprepared, catch me unprepared. I don't go on Facebook as much, so I don't notice them as much. But I want to express my love and appreciation for friends and family. That wasn't part of the copy. I'm just saying it. Year after year, month after month. Even when I see it coming, I'm not ready. Am I a jerk? Yes and no. Why do things have to be so black and white for you? But I've got great news, friends. Introducing monthly card subscriptions from the Cardist Studio. Join the service that delivers the card and the stamp that you'll need to your door. No more errands. Who wants more errands? I don't know why, but I'm starting to think of errands as a kid's name. Errands, go back to bed. Okay, but here's how it works. You choose your categories, from birthdays and celebrations to love and encouragement, or select their full collections and have those thank you notes and just because cards at the ready. Those ones are always so nice. Like when you get a card for doing something and it's just like a small little heads up or token of appreciation, it genuinely makes you feel really good. And best of all, you would never get caught cardless again. Let me repeat, you'll never get caught cardless again. Try to say that a bunch of times in a row. You'll never get caught cardless again. Monthly card subscriptions from as little as $8 per month for the card and the stamp. Delivered to you. TheCardistStudio.com shop subscriptions. And you can use the promo code AnxietyPod for 15% off your originating order. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I'm curious if there's anything you think that's important to mention in a discussion where people are afraid of sharks. We've touched on things that they can do, the reality of the iffiness around bites and their role in the ocean. But I want to turn it over to you if there's anything you'd like to mention.
Yeah, when I hear about people being scared of sharks and scared of going in the water, the easiest thing to do is to give things like statistics and say, well, your chance of getting bitten is really, really small. But the truth is, if you're scared of these animals, statistics don't really help. In the same sense, I'm scared of flying. You can give me all the statistics you want about how the chance of a plane crashing is tiny. That doesn't mean that I'm any less scared when I go up in there, because it's not even necessarily a rational fear.
It's not rational.
That's the problem. So statistics doesn't really help you that much. To me, the best approach is to try to get people to admire these animals for what they are. And obviously the best way of that is to actually show them these animals in the wild, but that's not always possible. But to really try to get people to appreciate these animals and admire them for what they are. They're these incredible animals. And it's true that sharks in your waters is a sign of a healthy ecosystem. Mm-hmm. Areas that had sharks and they're all gone, which we see in some places, is not a good sign. That's just not. It's not the sign of a healthy ecosystem. So I think being able to admire these animals and hopefully understand that your chance of being bitten is very, very low. It's not zero, of course, but in the same sense, again, if someone goes into the ocean and drowns, they get caught in a riptide, we don't ever blame the ocean. We're just like, well, those are risks, and you do have things you can do to reduce the risk of drowning in the ocean. but it's never going to be zero, and it's always going to be considerably higher than drowning in a swimming pool. And it's the same thing when you deal with these animals. Again, these are big predators, but I will say that compared to other big predators, sharks are much safer. You would not want to be hanging around bears in the same way you can hang around sharks. You would definitely not want to be hanging around lions or big cats the way you'd want to be hanging around with sharks. And the reason is because I think the chance of getting bitten by those animals is going to be much higher than something like a shark. Mm-hmm. So it's just a very unlikely thing to happen. These are incredible animals. I think more and more people are appreciating them. We see sharks in the media a lot more. There's a lot more documentaries. You see stuff on TV all the time, and I hope it can make people appreciate these animals for what they are. And you should be cautious around them. They are predators. You absolutely should not treat them like a puppy dog. Then it's not your friend. It's not a pet. It's a wild animal, but try not to be afraid of them. There's a difference between respecting, being cautious, and being fearful.
Yeah, that's a good distinction to draw. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm curious if there's any social media or anything that you're working on that you'd like to mention for the audience.
No, I have my own Twitter and Instagram accounts. Dr. Yannis is my Twitter account. Yannis Papastamatiou, my Instagram. My lab, the Predatory Ecology and Conservation Lab, has Instagram and Twitter accounts as well. So, a lot of our work and things like that will go up on those sites. So, if you're interested, please follow our sites, and we try and put stuff up there, including lots of pictures.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. And I'll let you know when this is ready to go out.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So Yannis shares, I'll say, our anxiety with planes, and also coming back to what we said in the beginning, he acknowledges like the idea of if someone's afraid of sharks, you can feed them stats all day long, but they're still going to be afraid of sharks. And so his approach is getting people to admire sharks and appreciate like their role in the ocean. I love that, right? It's such a different approach, right? It's just so easy to tell people, your stats, but going the other way it's an interesting approach. I don't know how effective it would be, but it is interesting.
Yeah. I think that anything we can do to get people to revere nature instead of fear it is like always a healthy thing, because it just makes people care, about the world more. If I'm thinking about the ocean and airplanes and what they may have in common is that, they're both environments where you have to surrender a level of control, and maybe that has a lot to do with it too.
It has to, right?
Like for me personally, you step onto an airplane, you step into the ocean, and all of a sudden a lot isn't up to you anymore. That's kind of a scary thing to deal with. And then, maybe the sharks are just something that maybe it's more of a manifestation of just the giving up of control. That's something a tangible thing you can visualize, like a monster,
Right. Absolutely.
Because I keep thinking about the point you brought up about drowning, about how being such a bigger fear, and yet a lot more of my cognitive load is spent thinking about sharks.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Right. Absolutely. And like the point, he makes this point, like, so if I mention lions, bears, and sharks, which seems the scariest to you? To me, it's sharks.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And even though like the chances of being bit by bears or lions are like way higher statistically in terms of like amount of interactions versus like negative interactions, it must be that we're just out of our element. And because even like a lion, like you probably wouldn't know that they're there until they wanted you to know that they're there, right? So yeah, it has to be that element of control that like you can't manipulate the environment of the ocean in a way that you can on land.
Yeah, and sharks are fast too. I keep thinking about the visual you brought up about the shark coming toward you, and I don't know what speed it was going, but that's another terrifying thing when you think about how quickly something can move in the water. And I mean, really, like we're remarkably slow in the water.
Yeah.
Like picture yourself 20, 30 yards out in the water and you have to come back immediately. If that picture is zoomed out, it looks like you're just crawling.
Yeah.
But the sharks can just zip around.
Yeah. So it was moving at like not top speed. I could tell it could go faster, but it was moving. It's like the ease of the movement, right? Like the fin is just like cutting through the water, especially in this like choppy environment that like we're just like trying to keep our heads above water. It just cut through all of it, just up and down, moving the way it wants. Terrifying.
Terrifying.
So yeah, I mean the main takeaway that Yannis mentioned was just the ocean in general is to just respect it and be cautious and do what you can. But I mean that's really the best we can do. All right, I mean, you know, sharks are a sign of a healthy ecosystem, right? Where sharks aren't there, like potentially the ecosystem is suffering, and so acknowledging that they have a right to be there, and that is just what it is, right? Just be aware and don't swim alone, and don't let it ruin your summer.
Yeah. There's no reason for it to invade your mind that much. And yeah, I think we should appreciate their presence. You know, I'm no expert, but it does seem like we keep finding examples of where predators are like re-released or reintroduced into various environments and help restore a sort of balance. Like I know they've been letting wolves kind of reclaim areas out west, and that's helped control the deer population, stuff like that, and helps the grasses grow and
even help rivers, if I
right,
remember the story correctly. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we should just appreciate them being there. But man, the second I see one, I'm gonna
just step on people's
be
heads.
thinking with my amygdala,
Yeah.
just immediately. All of that sentiment will go out the window the second I see one.
Right. Everyone for themselves.
Yeah, I was at Shim Creek the other day, and it's like a local kind of recreational and fishing area, and I recalled a couple of years ago, there are people, they have scuba divers there who go down and like scrape the barnacles off the boat hulls.
Boats and stuff, yeah.
Boats. And I think because you have these fishing docks there where they get the fish in and they clean them on the dock and stuff. The guys who go down and scuba dive to scrape the boat holes were complaining that there were these really large sharks that were just kind of hanging out down there. And
it would make sense. Yeah.
And they weren't bothering them, but I know that they were just unsettled by their presence. And I think that they even had a couple photos, and they were pretty large. I think they were lemonhead sharks. They were.
I'll have to Google what that looks like.
Like a large shark.
Yeah.
And this is in an area, where there's constantly
kayakers and stand-up
paddleboards, going right over there. So just interesting to know. But again, to the point that they're always around people and usually without incident. So
usually without incident, we'll take it. Sharks usually without incident.
Yeah.
Well, awesome, man. This has been a great 2 episodes. Thank you so much for your time, and it's been great talking about sharks.
Matt, thanks for having me.
Of course. Yeah. All right, so we talked about sharks. I'm sure I'll do another series on sharks. It's just too much fun. Also, it's kind of fun watching the highlights of a 74-year-old man who became king be handed a sword and an orb. Oh, man. Boy, what an outdated thing, huh? Having a king. It's like, maybe you can modernize it. I don't know what maybe just set me off on the tangent. It just made me think of what else was funny, and just watching, 74-year-old King Charles with a sword and an orb. Like he's Merlin, or he's going to charge into battle. But yeah, like I said, definitely going to do more on sharks. There's just so much to learn, and they're just so cool, while also inspiring a lot of fear, unfortunately. So before I get to the weird thing causing me anxiety this week, I just want to remind you of the Buy Me a Coffee link It's in the description, and it's just a way to make a donation or a tip to the show. Also, don't forget to take advantage of the promo code with Pure Spectrum CBD, who offer the promo code AnxietyPod, one word, for 15% off your order. You can just click the link right in the description and be right there. I'm a big Solve guy. It helps calm my muscles after playing old man hockey. Also gummies, tinctures, bath products. I got it all. Stuff for your pets. Ooh, Ollie's been getting some of that stuff. I think it helps him, especially when it's time to go to the vet, which that gives my puppy anxiety. If you want to sign up for home delivery of groceries, you can do that with Instacart. The link is also in the description, and that's a way of, well, if you sign up that way, that's a way of telling Instacart that this show sent you, which also helps support the show. And then there's also the Carter Studio, who offer the promo code AnxietyPod, which gives you 15% off your initial order. So yeah, helping support the sponsors helps support the show and helps these keep getting made. All right, weird thing causing me anxiety this week. A lot of wedding planning, right? Difficult decisions have to be made all the time, right? Guest lists, I mean, I can't invite everyone that I would like to invite, and trimming the guest list last night kept me up till 3 a.m. I stopped working at 11 p.m. and just stressed till 3, till I was finally able to get my brain to shut off. I don't know. I gotta figure out a routine, maybe a time to stop or do the difficult trimming in the morning. It just feels like the headspace of night helps me make tougher decisions, where it's just like, oh, I gotta do this, I gotta go to bed. So you can't overthink it, but then you do overthink it just when you're trying to sleep. I don't know. I gotta work on that. I gotta figure out a way to help myself get sleep, because these decisions aren't going away, and then I'm gonna be sending invitations and chasing people down. Got to be able to protect myself during this time. Oh, boo-hoo, Pat. You're marrying the woman you love, and you're having a party. Oh, I feel real bad for you. Yeah, all right. I hear you. It's a position of privilege. We'll say that. Well, as always, thank you so much for listening. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you on Thursday.